The noise in cell block D. If you think freedom is real, wait until you hear what's hiding behind these walls. Like, comment, and subscribe, because what you're about to hear isn't fiction. It's San Quentin Unfiltered. The camera of reality never blinks inside San Quentin. Concrete corridors breathe with secrets, and the air is heavy with the kind of silence that only men who've lost everything can make. On a fog-covered morning in early March, the prison woke to a noise that didn't belong. Metal crashing against metal, followed by a scream that cut through the steel halls like a siren. By 6:15 a.m., alarms blared across the compound. Guards rushed toward cell block D, home to some of the most dangerous and unpredictable inmates in California. Inside, cell number 23 was wide open. The bed was still warm, the sink running, and a puddle of water gathered near the door. But the man who should have been there, Darius Cole, a convicted bank robber serving 25 years, was gone. At first, the warden thought it was a routine breach. San Quentin hadn't had a serious escape attempt in decades. But then the security footage came in grainy, distorted, showing what looked like two shadows instead of one. The camera in Darius's cell flickered out for exactly 11 seconds before coming back to life. 11 seconds, just enough time for a man to vanish. By noon, investigators from the California Department of Corrections were already on site. Among them was Detective Laura Briggs, a veteran with a sharp instinct for lies. She wasn't just there to find a missing inmate. She wanted to know how a man could walk out of one of the most secure facilities in the country without a trace. Her first stop was the surveillance room. "Freeze it," she said to the technician. On screen, a faint reflection appeared on the polished steel door of cell 23, a shape that didn't match Darius's build. "Someone else was there," she whispered. And they knew where the blind spot was. Hours later, when the lockdown was lifted, guards began to whisper. Darius wasn't just any inmate. Before his conviction, he was an expert in security systems, a technician who built digital locks for private prisons. Some said he'd been planning an escape for years. Others said he'd made a deal with someone outside. But the truth was far darker. Detective Briggs visited Darius's small storage locker, hoping to find clues. Inside, she found letters, dozens of them, addressed to someone named E. Each one was written in code, the kind used by people who know they're being watched. The last letter, dated 2 days before his disappearance, ended with one chilling line. "When the blue light flickers, you'll know it's time." That same night, inside the prison infirmary, an inmate named Hector Alvarez claimed he saw something. He said he watched two men dressed in maintenance uniforms walking near cell block D around 5:45 a.m., one tall, one shorter, both wearing caps. But here's the twist. No maintenance work had been scheduled for that block. Briggs ordered an immediate search of all maintenance records. The logbook showed no entry that morning. But one name appeared under authorized access: Officer T. Reynolds. Reynolds was a guard with a spotless record, 15 years on duty, respected by everyone. When questioned, he claimed he'd been home, sick with the flu. His time card, however, had been stamped at 5:40 a.m. inside the security office. When confronted, his hands shook. "Someone's setting me up," he said, voice trembling. But Briggs could see the sweat forming at his temple, the darting eyes of a man caught between truth and survival. That night, as the prison went dark, the warden's office received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a USB drive. No label, no note, just the drive. Briggs plugged it into her laptop, the screen filling with surveillance stills, images no one should have been able to access. The first showed Darius in his cell, pacing. The second showed Reynolds near the cell door, unlocking it. And the third image showed both men walking together down a dim corridor, disappearing into a blinding blue light. The timestamp on the footage? 6:11 a.m. The same moment the alarm went off. Briggs stared at the screen, her heart pounding. "How did they get past every gate?" she muttered. Then, zooming in on the final frame, she noticed something strange, a reflection in the glass of a control panel. A third person, standing still, watching them leave. She enhanced the image, but it was too blurred to make out the face. All she could see was the outline of a security badge, one that didn't belong to San Quentin staff. The realization hit her like a freight train. This wasn't a simple escape. This was an inside operation, and whoever was behind it had enough power to override San Quentin's entire system for exactly 11 seconds. She exhaled slowly, staring into the cold glow of the monitor. This wasn't about freedom, she said. It was about something buried inside these walls. As she turned to leave, her phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Just one sentence. "Stop digging, detective. He's not the one who escaped." Briggs froze. Because if Darius Cole hadn't escaped, then who was the man walking beside the guard in that final frame? The inside job. The storm over the San Francisco Bay hit like an omen that morning. Waves slammed against the prison walls of San Quentin, spraying mist over the watchtowers. Inside the command center, the atmosphere was just as violent. Detective Laura Briggs had just uncovered the biggest breach in the prison's history, and the warden wanted answers that didn't exist. 11 seconds, the warden barked, slamming his fist on the table. That's how long my system was blind. Who can shut down our entire security grid for exactly 11 seconds and vanish? Briggs said nothing. She stared at the USB drive resting on the table, the blue indicator light still blinking like a pulse. "Someone who knows this place better than any of us," she finally said. The tech analyst, Carter, spoke up. "That footage wasn't taken from our system. It was copied before the breach, likely from an internal source. Whoever did this had access before it even happened." Briggs's instincts were on fire. "You're saying the escape was planned weeks ahead?" Carter nodded. "Maybe months." She turned to the warden. "I need a list of everyone with security clearance above level 3, guards, contractors, system engineers. And get me their last 2 months of access logs." While the list was being compiled, Briggs returned to cell block D. The atmosphere there felt haunted now, quiet, heavy, as if the walls themselves were keeping a secret. The inmates whispered when she passed. A few looked afraid. Others smirked, enjoying the chaos. Then she spotted inmate 1029, Hector Alvarez, the one who claimed to see the men in maintenance uniforms. He was mopping the floor near the showers. Briggs approached. "You told me you saw 2 men that morning. I need to know more." Hector looked around before answering. "You think I'm stupid? You're not the only one asking questions. A man came by last night, said if I keep talking, I'll end up in the infirmary for good." "Who?" she pressed. He hesitated, then whispered. "A guard, the tall one. The one with the burn on his hand." Briggs's blood ran cold. Officer Reynolds had that exact scar from a riot 5 years ago. By noon, she had him in the interrogation room. Reynolds looked pale, his eyes sunk deep, hands trembling. The sound of rain against the window filled the silence between them. "Officer Reynolds," Briggs began, calm but sharp. "You said you were home, sick the morning Darius disappeared. But your access card was used at 5:40 a.m. We also have footage showing you opening cell 23. "I told you," he interrupted, voice cracking. "Someone used my badge. I didn't do it." "Then explain this," she said, sliding a photo across the table, the third image from the USB. The one where he was walking beside Darius. He froze. "That's not me." Briggs studied him closely. He wasn't lying, or at least not entirely. "You're saying someone impersonated you?" Reynolds nodded. "They scanned my badge last week, took it from the locker room and cloned it. I told the supervisor, but he said it was a glitch." She leaned in. "Who's he?" "Chief Engineer Miles Grady," Reynolds whispered. Briggs knew that name. Grady had been with San Quentin for 8 years, overseeing electronic systems. Smart. Quiet. The kind of man who could disappear in a crowd. Within the hour, Briggs and her team raided Grady's office. The desk was empty. The monitors had been wiped clean. But behind a loose ceiling panel, they found something chilling, a small server box connected to a portable power supply. It was running a local copy of the prison's entire surveillance grid. "This is how he did it," Carter said. He rerouted the feed, looped the cameras, and triggered a power dip, 11 seconds exactly. And then Briggs saw the photo taped to the inside of the cabinet. A faded image of three men smiling in front of a construction site marked San Quentin Expansion Project, 2014. Grady was in the middle. On his left, Darius Cole. On his right, Warden Keller. Her stomach twisted. They knew each other. By evening, Grady was nowhere to be found. His apartment was cleared out, car gone. But he'd left something behind, a coded note taped to his refrigerator. Briggs held it under the light, the ink smudged and faint. It read, "The system's not broken. It's just not yours anymore." That night, the power flickered again in San Quentin. Every camera went dark for 5 seconds. Guards scrambled, shouting into radios. Briggs sprinted to the command center, heart racing. When the feed returned, she froze. On every monitor across the wall, the same live image was being streamed, Darius Cole standing inside what looked like a maintenance tunnel beneath the prison. He was alive. And he was smiling. "Miss me?" His voice echoed through the speakers, distorted but calm. The warden shouted, "Where the hell is that feed coming from?" Carter was typing furiously. "It's internal, looped through our own network. He's inside the system." Darius leaned closer to the camera. "San Quentin built me. Now I'm rebuilding it. You can't cage someone who designed the locks." Then the feed cut out, replaced by a single blue flicker across all the screens. Briggs stood there, stunned. This wasn't an escape, it was a takeover. Moments later, her phone buzzed again. Another anonymous text. This time, a photo of the tunnel Darius was seen in, timestamped 5 minutes ago. Below it, one sentence burned into her mind. "Find the tunnel before he shuts it forever." She grabbed her jacket. "Get the searchlights on." "He's still here," she ordered. The rain outside grew heavier, hammering the steel roof. Somewhere beneath those walls, Darius Cole was rewriting the rules of San Quentin. And as Briggs descended into the dark tunnels beneath the prison, one thought haunted her. What if the prison that no one escapes from was never meant to keep people in? The ghosts inside San Quentin. There's something about San Quentin at night that feels wrong. Too still, too heavy. The air doesn't move, the walls seem to breathe, and every echo feels like someone whispering a confession they never got to make. By the time Detective Monroe returned, the prison was locked in a full-scale emergency. The yard was cleared, the alarm screamed in distant waves, and a thick fog had rolled over the bay, swallowing the outside world. Inside those walls, it felt like time itself was trapped. In the warden's office, the air was thick with tension. Files scattered across the floor, security footage looping in silence, and a body bag waiting by the door. The same informant who had been scheduled to testify that morning. He was found hanging in his cell. No signs of a struggle. No forced entry. No camera footage. The system had glitched conveniently for 22 minutes, the exact time of his death. "Impossible," the warden muttered, pacing. "That section's isolated. No one goes in or out without a key." Detective Monroe didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the footage, not of the cell but of the corridor leading to it. A shadow moved past the camera right before the blackout. A tall figure, calm, deliberate. Then nothing. He slowed the footage. Enhanced the frame. The face was blurry, but the build was familiar. His pulse quickened. It looked like Grayson, the inmate who was supposed to be in solitary confinement on the other side of the prison. How the hell could he? Before he could finish, the lights flickered. The monitors glitched again, static crawling across every screen. A message appeared, typed in white against black. "No one leaves." Monroe turned to the warden. "Shut it down. Now." But it was too late. Across the prison, doors began unlocking by themselves. Not all, just a few. Enough to throw the entire place into chaos. Inmates started screaming, pounding on their cells, as if the walls were collapsing inward. And somewhere deep below, in a tunnel that wasn't supposed to exist anymore, someone was moving fast, flashlight beams slicing through the dark. It was Officer Reynolds. He had followed the trail left behind by Grayson's coded messages, tracing it through the disused maintenance shafts under the prison. The walls were covered with old etchings, initials, dates, and one phrase repeated over and over. Freedom is a myth. He finally reached the end, a narrow brick wall that looked newer than the rest. When he pressed his hand against it, it shifted slightly. Hollow. Behind it, he found something that froze his blood. A room. Small, dark, untouched for decades. Inside, 5 skeletons still in prison uniforms. Shackles rusted into the wall. And on the ground, a journal. The last entry read, "They told us there was a way out, but the tunnel doesn't lead outside. It leads deeper." Meanwhile, up top, Monroe and the warden raced toward solitary. They had one goal: find Grayson. They reached the cell, empty. But it wasn't just empty, it was immaculate. The bed made, the floor spotless, no fingerprints, no dust. As if no one had ever been there at all. "Check the logs," Monroe ordered. He was here. He had to be. But when they pulled the records, his name was gone. Deleted from the system. His number reassigned. Even his mugshot erased. Only one piece remained, a photograph half-burned, showing a group of men in uniform standing in front of the prison gates. Grayson was among them, but in a guard's uniform. That's when it hit Monroe. Grayson wasn't a new inmate. He had been here before. Decades ago. A guard who disappeared after a failed escape attempt involving a group of prisoners and a tunnel collapse. Everyone assumed he died in the wreck. But someone had kept his identity alive, recycling it, moving it between inmates, erasing records to make him exist again and again. San Quentin had built its own ghost. Monroe looked at the photo again, the faces frozen in time, and whispered, "He's part of the prison now." The fog outside thickened until the towers vanished from sight. By morning, the system rebooted, and the chaos stopped. Every door locked again. Every alarm silenced. They never found Grayson. The journal from the tunnel was sealed in evidence, and the warden refused to release details to the press. The official report listed it as a malfunction and inmate suicide. But inside the security booth, one monitor remained on, camera feed 17A, showing the main hallway. And at exactly 3:12 a.m., a figure walked across the frame, looked straight at the camera, and smiled. Then the screen went black. The prison's automated system logged one final entry before the power cut. Cell reopened. Occupant: G. Grayson. Status: active. They say San Quentin doesn't forgive. It doesn't forget. And if you ever hear a voice whisper your name during the night shift, you might want to keep walking. Because in San Quentin, some prisoners never left. And some walls remember everything. If you think this story was dark, you're not ready for what comes next. Hit subscribe because the next case will make you question everything you thought you knew about freedom.